DRB-HICOM University is the first university by the industry for the industry. With our unique curriculum that offers a balance between theory and practical, we ensure that all our students are equipped to be part of the industry when they graduated. We are the only university to have direct link with the industry. That is DRB-HICOM Berhad. Leveraging on DRB-HICOM's vast business ventures, we are able to facilitate students' learning process and experience to the maximum. We aim to be ASEAN's premier innovation, research and education institution for the automotive ecosystem and sustainable development.
DRB-HICOM University is such a big name, and we all know DRB-HICOM University is the one and only automotive university in Malaysia.
DRB-HICOM University is not just a university, it's a place for us to expand our potential and express ourselves.
The facilities that's available here makes my learning experience more exciting.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yang berbahagia Profesor Datuk Surveyor Dr. Omar Osman, Vice Chancellor DRB-HICOM University of Automotive Malaysia and President of Scholars Volunteers Group. Yang berbahagia TS Dr. Ong Hui Roy, Dean Postgraduate Centre DRB-HICOM University of Automotive Malaysia. Yang berbahagia Prof. Dr. Ami Hamzah Jantan, Dean City Graduate School, City University Malaysia. Yang berbahagia Prof. Dr. Rosalina Ahmad Saufi, Dean Malaysia Graduate School of Entrepreneurship and Business, Universiti Malaysia Kelantan. Yang berbahagia Prof. Dr. Muhammad Hassan Muhammad Usman, UNITAR International University, and all participants. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera and welcome everyone to the first series of research methodology webinar organized by the Postgraduate Centre, DRB-HICOM University of Automotive Malaysia, in collaboration with Scholars Volunteers Group, City University Malaysia, UNITAR International University, and Universiti Malaysia Kelantan. Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed with our main agenda, let's pray to the Almighty for His guidance and mercy. Allow me to invite Al-Fadil Ustaz Muhammad Royan Muhammad Syaikuddin to lead the doa recital. Al-Fadil Ustaz.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-huda wa tuqa wal afafa wal ghina. Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'ah wa arina al-batila batilan warzuqna ijtinabah. اللهم نور قلوبنا بنور هدايتك كما نورت الأرض بنور شمسك أبدا أبدا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم افتح علينا حكمتك وانشر علينا من خزائن رحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. ربنا اشرح لنا صدورنا ويسر لنا أمورنا واحلل عقدة من ألسنتنا يفقهوا أقوالنا. ربنا زدنا علما وارزقنا فهما. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Amin amin ya rabbal alamin. Thank you very much Al-Fadil Ustaz. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Yang Berbahagia Professor Datuk Surveyor Dr. Omar Osman, Vice Chancellor of DRB-HICOM University of Automotive Malaysia, for his opening speech. Yang Berbahagia, Datuk.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Okay, Laili, can hear me?
Yes, Datuk.
Okay. Again, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Selamat pagi. Pertama kali izinkan saya memanjatkan kesyukuran kepada Allah SWT kerana izin dan limpah kurnianya pada pagi ini kita dapat bersama-sama. Dan selawat dan salam ke atas junjungan kita Nabi Muhammad Rasulullah SAW, kaum keluarga baginda dan juga sahabat-sahabat baginda. It's a great pleasure for me to be around to attend this research methodology seminar organized by the 4 universities, namely the DRB-HICOM University, Universiti Malaysia Kelantan, UNITAR International, and City University, in collaboration with the Scholars Volunteer Group. This research methodology started as an idea to share knowledge with our students, but then we are able to rope in a few more of our collaborative partner through our Scholars Volunteer Group. And as of yesterday, we have over 400 participants registering for the event. And it's a continuous 5 weeks schedules, which I hope you can vacate it, your time to actually follow the seminar. In a way is an informal training, but we hopefully can formalize the training so that at the end of the day, we can give you some certification so that you will have something in hand that you have followed a structured research methodology workshop in the new era of learning through online and the ability to hold this, and definitely the way that it's being organized now will allow us to interact, and I hope there will be participants not only from Malaysia but also other countries through our network of the Scholars Volunteer Group. I do wish that this platform to collaborate will bring new era of knowledge sharing for all the research candidates reading for their masters and also for their PhD in any universities that is participating. Also, maybe there will be some who is interested to undertake their venture into learning at a higher degree and can use this platform to learn a bit more from the experienced professors that we have gathered around, from friends, from colleagues that have supervised. In total, I think hundreds of PhD students and masters during their stay as a professor, or even currently serving as a professor. So we have people like Professor Roslina Ahmad Saufi, who was previously Deputy Vice Chancellor of Academic from Universiti Malaysia Kelantan and who's heading a graduate business school now. We have Professor Muhammad Hassan from UTM, UITM, UMK, previously also a Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research and Academic and International, and now the Director of DBA in UNITAR International. And I have my colleagues here, Professor Amir Hamzah from City University, who is also the Dean of Postgraduate. So I think we have gathered a few more. I'm sure Dr. Ong, who is the coordinator for this program, can get a few more to come in to share their experiences so that you will have a guided pathway, a more broader view of how to approach research. not just getting a PhD or a master's, but the most important is to be able to understand how you can approach issues and problems in a systematic way through a trodden path, or maybe you are daring enough to venture into some innovative methodology, provided you can stand on it. And definitely at the end of the day, the scroll will be something that will be useful to you, but the knowledge will enrich you throughout your lifetime. It is also important from our experiences that proper grounding in research methodology, in the way you conduct the reviews and the way you approach data collection, and how you critically assemble the data, validate the data, and interpret the data to come to a conclusion that will be useful in your field of knowledge. Most important, I think PhD is not about specialization in your areas, but also about how you become wiser, in essence, becoming a native that is useful to your nation building. Definitely in the area of digitalization and the utilization of tools for easing the way things can be looked at and analyzed will definitely be an asset. For me, for example, I still supervise PhD students, although I should be retiring. I think knowledge sharing and dispersion is an essence and the hallmark of academics. And I wish that all of you here will definitely be a student who reads for his master's or PhD. We used to call ourselves people who reads for PhD. Reads mean you need to dig deep into the knowledge areas. When you graduate, you should be the one who specializes and understand the real meaning of the areas that you're doing. Maybe your supervisor will be asking you, what is it that he should understand more? That's reading for PhD. And getting a PhD is only a process. But the wealth of knowledge that you will gain is definitely something that will be dear to you, will be dear to your family, and definitely will be dear to the institution. Go back once you get your PhD and give back to the society, regardless of race, religion, social strata, or any other things. You may be a lecturer, you may be a consultant, or you may be working in a research institute or in the corporate sector, but make full use of knowledge so that at the end of the day, you can put hand to your heart and say, I have definitely delivered what is supposed to be from me, from Allah, definitely, but for the benefit of even a small community in the furthest of the region in the world. And you will be a useful native of the global world, not to mention about your country. So again, I definitely wish you the best. We hold this seminar for free, but if there is a certification process, you probably have to pay a bit for the administrative fees. But Scholars Volunteer Group, DRB-HICOM University, and friends from City, UMK, and UNITAR believe that knowledge is supposed to be shared. And that sharing can happen in many instances. In this post-epidemic area, coming to endemic, we should venture into the spaces that is void and fill up with joy and also partnership and friends. Again, stay tuned to the next 5 weeks. Vacate your social time during Saturday for a while and gain the best of what can be shared with the learned and the wise. from the ladies and the gentlemen of the academic world in Malaysia. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And I officiate this research methodology workshop and hope you will benefit from. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Yang Berbahagia Datuk. Ladies and gentlemen, now please welcome TS Dr. Ong Hui Roy, Dean of Postgraduate Centre, DRB-HICOM University of Automotive Malaysia, to give the briefing on the schedule of the webinar series.
I'd like to check my slide on screen.
Yes.
All right, thank you, MC Kak Laili. Good morning to all the speakers and participants. I'll be giving the briefing on the series schedule of research methodology webinar. As you can see on the screen, throughout the program, we have 3 speakers. They are namely Professor Amir Hamzah from City University Malaysia, Professor Muhammad Hassan from UNITAR International University, and Professor Rosalina from Universiti Malaysia, Kelantan. This webinar will cover all the important chapters in the thesis. They are introduction, literature, research methodology, result and discussion, conclusion and recommendation. This event will run for 5 consecutive weeks, every Saturday in April 2022. And as for today, we will cover the chapter 1 by Professor Amir Hamzah. And week number 2, we will be covering the chapter 2, literature, by Professor Muhammad Hassan. And the third week, we will continue the chapter 2 by Professor Muhammad Hassan. And the week number 4, we will cover 2 chapters, chapter 3, research methodology, and chapter 4, result and discussion by Professor Dr. Rosalina. In the last week, week 5, we will continuing covering the chapter 4, result and discussion by Professor Rosalina, and chapter 5, conclusion and recommendation by Professor Dr. Amir Hamzah. Ladies and gentlemen, the beauty of this webinar is we will micro-credential the program, and all the participants who are interested, they can sit for the assessment where the micro-credential certificate will be issued. What you need to do is to attend all the 5 weeks and sit for the assignment or the assessment, a mini one, simple, and you will be giving a certification which will be endorsed by the Senate of the University. And for the certification fee will be 100 ringgit Malaysia. The last thing before the ending, I would like to remind all of the participants, you will be receiving the Zoom invitation for all the continuing week, a day before the event, which is Saturday. Here I wish all of you enjoy the event, and thank you. Now I pass back to MC Kak Laili.
Thank you, Dr. Ong. So, ladies and gentlemen, for your information, there will be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, or you can also ask questions along the way as Prof. Amir Hamzah give his talk, and you can raise your hand and we will allow the mic for you. Okay, so without further ado, please welcome Prof. Dr. Amir Hamzah Jantan, Dean of City Graduate School, City University Malaysia, for his topic on Chapter 1, Introduction.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Yang berbahagia Datuk Surveyor Dr. Omar, my colleagues, Prof. Roslina, Prof. Hassan, TS Dr. Ong, Puan Laili, participants. All right, welcome to our research methodology webinar. So first thing, if you can type in the chat box, where are you from? Where are you listening in from? If you can do that for me. I know for a fact that one of my students is listening in from Berlin, Germany. Okay, I see Brunei, yeah, Abdul Saif from Berlin, Germany. Oman, China, Brunei, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Glasgow. Great, right? So we have from Iran as well. So we have participants from all over the world. Thank you so much for coming to be with us this morning. So what I am going to share with you today is to talk about the first chapter. All right, I'm going to talk about the first chapter. Okay. So my name is Amir. I'll be here with you for the next couple of hours. So as we go along, if you have questions, please do stop me. All right, please do stop me, and then I'll ask and respond to your question. So when we, of course, when we want to write our chapters, we have to be very sure of what we are writing about in the first place, right? By the way, I'm from City Graduate School, City University, Malaysia. So when we talk about the introduction chapter, we have to remember that chapter 1 is the engine of your thesis, right? Your chapter 1 is the one that drives the rest of your document, your thesis. So therefore, what you need to do, it has to be a complete empirical argument. It forms the basis for your chapter 2, your chapter 3, your chapter 4, your chapter 5, or some of you may later decide that you want to have a chapter 6 and a chapter 7 and a chapter 8 and so on. But basically, when we do our thesis, when we write our thesis, you would have the 5 chapters, all right? The 5 chapters. So you need within your chapter 1, you need to have that. You need to have a proof along the way. You need to back up whatever arguments that you are saying with references, with citations. It is not a creative writing project, right? Where you say whatever you like writing a novel or like writing a story. So it has to be, you know, an academic piece of work. Okay? It has to be an academic piece of work. So in chapter 1, you also need to use a lot of these transitional words. You need to use a lot of links from one paragraph to another paragraph, from one section to another section, as well as subheading. So that is why your chapter 1, your chapter 2, and so on, it has to be organized. It has to be formatted accordingly, based on the requirements of your university. I believe, you know, different universities would have different requirements in terms of the format, in terms of the numbering and all, but you know, but basically these are the things. So you have to show, you have to be able to show that, you know, every section that you put is linked to one another. I remember on Tuesday, I was examining one student, one PhD student in her proposal defense from one university. So she had this section on the Malaysian economy, right? She had this section on the Malaysian economy. So I asked her, how is this section related to what you are doing, what you are researching on. And she was not able to explain convincingly why she had that section. So it is very important, everyone, whatever section that you decide to put in your thesis, in your chapter 1 for our purpose, it has to be a reason. There has to be a reason why you are putting it there. It needs to be a piece of the jigsaw that you put that would make the whole story. So it has to be connected, like I was saying. So when you have all these transitional words, sentences, paragraphs, so the reader, especially the examiner, would be able to follow your train of thought, the way you think, why you are saying this, why you are saying that, and how you are building your case for your thesis as a whole. So this chapter, this introduction chapter, is the empirical opening statement about your masterpiece, your thesis that you are going to share with the world. Different universities would have different sections, different things that you need to include in your chapter 1. But for the purpose of our discussion, these are the things that normally would be included, that should be included into your chapter 1. So you would need the introduction. You need to have an introduction, although the chapter 1 is already the introduction chapter, but you still need an introduction. So it's 1.1 introduction. Then you would have 1.2 background of the study. 1.3 would be the problem statement. Some would use statement of the problem. 1.4 research questions. 1.5 research objectives. 1.6 significance of the study. 1.7 scope of the study. 1.8 operational definition of the terms. 1.9 organization of the thesis, and 1.10 chapter summary. So these are basically the sections, the headings that you would have in your chapter 1. But of course, you may also want, sometimes you may want to have a subheading if you feel that would further strengthen your arguments, further strengthen the need for your research. So this would be something that you would write in your 1.1 introduction. Okay, this would be something that you write in your 1.1 section. So because this is the introduction to the chapter 1. So what you would normally do is you describe the contents of the chapter 1 that you are writing. For example, all right, this chapter will highlight the background of the study, the problem statement, the research questions, the research objectives, significance of the study. Some students, some universities, they would also ask the students to also include the research hypothesis there in the chapter, scope and limitations of the study, the operational definition of terms, organization of the thesis, as well as the chapter summary. So what you basically do is you describe in your 1.1 introduction the things that you would discuss in the chapter. So that is very straightforward. I saw Dr. Zamharis lifting up his hand, then he took it down again. Okay, all right. Okay, so that is 1.1. And then everyone, what we need to remember is that 1.1 would be very similar with your last section, which is the chapter summary. where you would write what you have written in your 1.1, only that is a slightly different tense that you use in your 1.10. Okay. Okay, the next section would be your background of the study. All right, 1.2. Okay, your background of the study. So this section is very important. All right, it's very important that for you to write this section, because it must contain a mention of all the subject matters that you will be discussing in your chapter 2. Okay, in your chapter 2. So in this background of the study also, you want to also mention the keywords. All right, the keywords, the important terms that you would be mentioning throughout your thesis. So these keywords are basically the variables that you are testing, that you are researching on in your thesis. These are also the keywords that you would use. All right, these are also the keywords that you use in your search for articles, for journals. So these keywords you need to mention in the background of the study. So for example, if you are talking about brand loyalty and then the factors that contribute towards brand loyalty, so here in your background of the study, so you need to mention brand loyalty and all the factors that you are you are going to discuss, that you are going to use, plus whatever things that have been researched on by previous researchers. What are the major findings, all right, in the field of interest? Okay, what are the major findings of that you have read about in your search for literature? And also what you want to do is in this background of the study section, it should be a brief 2 to 4 page summary of the major findings. Okay. Also for you to remember is that you also want to have a minimum of 2 to 3 citations to the literature per paragraph, meaning that because this is an empirical work, you want to show that you have referred to, you have read literature that has discussed all the things, all the keywords, all the variables that you are venturing into. So you want to show this. You want to show that you have read the latest literature. I'm sure you would continuously hear from your supervisors, cite recent literature at most 5 years. Do not cite something that is very old, because sometimes one of the things that will be commented by your examiner when you do your viva is that they will say that the citations are too dated, too old. Okay, so that is why you want to do this, and you provide the citations that you referred to. The paragraphs that you have in your background of the study should be discussing what are the unresolved issues in relation to your research, what are the conflicting findings that you found in your reading of literature, what are the social concerns, what are the educational issues, national issues, international issues related to your research. Okay, you want to talk about all this because this background of the study section prepares the reader, the examiner especially, towards the next section, which is the problem statement or the statement of the problem section. So the focus of this section is where you want to talk, to mention about the gap in the knowledge that is found in the current body of research literature, empirical literature. Also about, okay, this background of the study section is also about positioning your study. Where do you position your study? Remember that when you do your PhD, is about contributing to knowledge. You are adding to the knowledge corpus about whatever topic that you are doing, whether you are doing a science-based thesis or a social science-based thesis. You want to position your study to show that okay, here, this is what I am contributing to the knowledge. Earlier, if you remember, Prof. Dato mentioned something about you wanting and needing to be an expert in the area that you specialize in. So this is where you want to do that, to position your study where exactly you are coming from. So you present and analyze your current observations, right? You present and analyze your current observations, the experiences, the views, the opinions that reflect or brought to bear the existence of the problem that you are going to address with your research. Okay, there are concerns about recording, about slides. Yes, I believe the organizer would provide the things that you are discussing. Okay, no worries. You will get the slides. You will get the recording. Okay. These are samples of comments by the examiners on one thesis, one of my students' thesis this week. All right. So this is a sample of the comments that was given by the examiners. So the examiner said, this section has a lengthy list of different studies done in different concepts, and yet there was no clear tie-up between these studies and how they relate to training needs analysis and organizational effectiveness. So my student was working on that. He was writing a thesis on training needs analysis and organizational effectiveness. However, he was not clear. He was not discussing the concept. He's not tying up the concepts together. And also earlier I mentioned something about where you want to situate your study, right? That was also the comment that was given by his examiner. The candidate did not situate his study well on the reason why he wanted to examine training needs analysis. And then another comment was points and discussion were made on a grand claim basis without solid support from literature and industry data. So sometimes, there is a tendency for us to make claims. I will do this, I will do this, I will do this, but you do not have literature to back it up. The student that examined, she said something about sustainable development goals, and said that her study would address those issues, but when we look further inside what she wrote, she was just addressing just 2 out of the 14 SDGs. All right. So I told her, so do not overclaim what your research would be contributing to. All right. Another comment, the discussion on the context of the study was not visible, right? You didn't discuss the context. The candidate needs to discuss the current issues through recent literature review research. So the reason behind this, because the literature that he referred to was not that recent. Another comment, there is lack of critical and synthesized discussions on what exactly is the research problem. So the examiners could not see that, all right? The examiners could not see what the research problem was because the discussion was just, very descriptive without critical justification on the significance of the discussion. So this would be the things that examiners look for in your work, okay? This would be the things that the examiners would look for in your work. So you want, as you write, as you draft, think about these things. How you be able to convince the readers, the examiners, that you have addressed all these things. You are clear, you are critical, you synthesize whatever that you have read in relation to the topic of your choice. Then we come to the next section, which is problem statement. The problem statement is the core of your research, the heart of your research. It is the entire reason why you are doing the research. So you need to be convincing in your argument that there is a real need to do this research, to conduct the research. I remember being in a few viva voce sessions, as well as proposal defense sessions. So the examiners, after the student mentioned or presented about the problem statement, and then the first phrase that came out from the examiner was, "So what?" So what? Because the examiner did not see the need for conducting that research. I also used to ask students questions like, do you need a PhD to do this? Do you need a PhD to study on this? Or you can just, do it as you are working in your organization. So you have to be very, very sure that, that you are addressing a problem that is worth researching for either for a master's thesis or for a PhD thesis. So you want to be able to talk about, what is known about your problem, the problem that you are, okay, for example, brand loyalty. So let's say the problem is about brand loyalty. And then what are the variables that contribute towards this problem? Again, remember, right? Remember that there would have been many researches that have been done on that problem. For example, brand loyalty. Many research have done. There are hundreds of thousands of PhD students all over the world. They may have done that thing that you are doing. So you want to be sure, right? What is known. So that's the reason for your literature review. That's the reason for referring to the latest articles on your problem, on your research problem. And you want to know what is still not known, what has not been done, You do not want to just take a study and replicate it, and then you say that is your contribution. So that would not be acceptable for a PhD merely by replicating what has been done before somewhere else in another part of the world, because that would just you would just be addressing the contextual gap at the most, right? So you have to talk about these things, what is still not known. So that's why when you read articles, or if you read thesis of PhD students that you find, so look at the section on, you know, suggestions for future research. So what are the things that they did not address, right, in their research? What are the things that they would want others to explore in other research? So these are things that would help you identify the research gaps, and you would be able to clearly convince the examiners, okay, this is, you know, worth doing a research, a PhD research on. All right. So you want to, in your problem statement, you want to highlight what is currently known. You want to also highlight, if, you know, based on your reading, there are some weaknesses in past findings. Okay, maybe, you know, they did not address certain things. Maybe they did not include certain variables that should be included. So let's say that is what you find. So you want to introduce a new variable, then that new variable or that new, you know, moderator or mediator would be your contribution, right? Would be your contribution to the field of knowledge, to the knowledge corpus that, you know, that has already been done. So you also want to highlight the expected knowledge of what is required, you know, that things that you feel that is still unknown, and that would help you to contribute to the body of knowledge. So among some of the things to show research gaps, you know, you can talk about gaps in concepts, gaps in perspectives, gaps in theory, methodology gaps, analysis gaps, and all those things. The known and unknown, like I said just now, you know, you need to analyze, you need to synthesize, you need to defend, right? You need to defend why you feel that there is a need to research it further. Okay, so just now also Professor Omar mentioned about being well read. You know, if you are well read with the literature of what you are working on, whatever questions that your examiners may ask you, you would be able to defend why you are approaching your research from that particular angle, and by having, you know, evidence that, you know, people have said that it has not been tested before, it has not been researched before. So you can do that, and also you can argue about the existence of the problem by talking about inconsistencies, meaning that this group of researchers talks about this. However, there are also other researchers who feel that it should be the other way around, and so on. You may also want to talk about controversies, the conflicts, as well as the contradictions in the previous studies. Again, everyone, this is an exercise of your scholarly ability, right? You want to do that. That is what you are doing. That is what you are embracing in writing your thesis, in pursuing your master's or your PhD. Okay, these are some examples, right? You want to talk about, for example, evidence gap, knowledge gap, practical knowledge gap, methodological gap, empirical gap, theoretical gap, population gap. However, most of the time, all right, most of the time, when students work on, they would have at least discussed something on the theoretical gap as well as the practical gap. At least you have these two elements that you are addressing, that you are discussing in your problem statement. Okay, so those gaps, and then these gaps would be the basis for your research. These gaps that has not been addressed would result in the research questions that you want to find answers to by conducting your research. Okay, these are some comments again from examiners for the same student, right? This section was poorly defined and discussed. The candidate was merely stating the research problem without discussing critically why it is a problem. So that's why you will get examiners asking you, so what is the problem? Why do you think it's a problem? And then you need to be able to convince the examiner that there is a need for this research. The second comment there, the candidate did not successfully highlight the connections of constructs with the theory used to explain the framework. Earlier I mentioned about theory. So the candidate was not able to link that. And he also used a moderator variable. And then the question was, how is the moderator supported by contingency theory? Because he wanted to use contingency theory. How does the contingency theory support and justify the relationships between the variables in the framework? The candidate only described the list of studies and did not justify how and why training analysis was important to be examined with other variables such as training quality, perceived utility, organization size, consultant trainer, perceived organization support, and organization effectiveness. So these are the variables that the student use. These are the keywords that were used in the study. The candidate also needs to highlight the theoretical gap and explain the underpinning theory. Okay, what is the underpinning theory? You want to have some underpinning theory in your problem statement. All right, next section, 1.4 and 1.5, which is research questions and research objectives. Remember, everyone, all right, please remember that your research questions and your research objectives should be a result of your, should be the culmination of your problem statement. Okay, because of the things that you discuss in your problem statement, that is why it brings about these research questions that you want to find answers to by your research. Okay, so the research questions would refer to the questions which the researcher would like to be answered by carrying out the proposed research. The only difference between research questions and research objectives is that research questions are stated in the question form while objectives are stated in the statement form. However, there are also supervisors or examiners who would want you not to have identical research questions and research objectives. Sometimes they, you know, what students have is they would have a list of, for example, 6 or 7 research questions, but it would then be translated into 4 or 5 research objectives, for example, because some of the research questions can be combined. It can be combined to be more concise, and then not to have too many things that you want to do. Okay, these are examples of research questions. This is a study on the academic performance in private secondary schools in Malaysia. So from here, you know that, you know, the DV, right, the dependent variable would be the academic performance, and the IVs would be teacher factors, parental factors, as well as you know, a combination of teacher and parental factors in influencing the academic performance of students in private secondary schools in Malaysia. So this would be a sample of your research question. And then, as you can see, this research objectives is a reflection of what the research questions were just now, to find out the teacher factors influencing the students' academic performance in private secondary schools in Malaysia. This addresses the first research question. Number 2, to find out the parental factors influencing the students' academic performance in private secondary schools in Malaysia, which reflects research question 2. And then to determine the extent to which teacher parental factors affect the students' academic performance in private secondary schools in Malaysia. So this would reflect research question number 3. Let me take a look at the Q&A just in case. Should we, should we include the theoretical part in the background? Normally, what you do, Zaitun, you mentioned it in your problem statement, right? Normally, that is what you do, because in your background, you talk about what previous research that has been done. Okay, Zaitun, I hope that answers your question. But then again, all right, but then again, everyone, what you want to do is you want to always listen to your supervisor's advice. All right, you want to always listen to your supervisor's advice. If your supervisor says do this, so that is what you want to do, right? Although you feel that something is not so right about that, so you want to always listen, unless you can nicely tell your supervisor, Prof, I think this, all right? But you do not want to do that, all right? You do not want to do that. And also, let me share with you a story about my journey when I was doing my PhD. Okay, when I was doing my PhD, I took such a long time to do it, such a long time to complete it, because I was procrastinating and finding all the justification not to do my research. My supervisor was someone who would not really ask my progress. Okay, she would ask me once or twice every semester, and then whenever I'm able to explain to her, this is what I plan to do, this is what I plan to do, so she would be happy and not ask me anymore. So that's why I managed to escape most of the time not doing anything. But finally, I came to a stage where I need to submit my thesis, right? I need to submit my thesis. So as you know, you would have, this is in relation to the to listening to the main supervisor. Okay. So as you know, you normally have a supervisory committee. So you have your main supervisor and you have your co-supervisors. So what happened in my case was, I sent the thesis to my main supervisor. She would just, comment here a bit, comment there a bit, and not much comments were given. And she said, I write well, she said, okay. However, when I submit it to my co-supervisor, she is someone who is very, very detailed, very, very detailed. So every single line she would have comment, every single chapter she would have comment. So when she returned to me the thesis, I saw all the all the scribbles on all the pages and everything, and I said, okay, I'll address this. And then she suggested, said, maybe you just focus on your chapter 4. All right, just focus on chapter 4, and then you send me your revision of your chapter 4, which I did. However, when I sent her my chapter 4, it came back with many, many more comments, many, many more comments. And I thought to myself, I would not be able to graduate. Okay, I would not be able to address all those comments within, the year, and it will take like forever for me to address all the comments. So what I did was, all right, I went back to my main supervisor. Okay, I went back to my main supervisor and told her, okay, these are the things that the other co-supervisor commented. And he said, don't worry, Ameh, you just do this, then you should be okay. So I listened to her and and proceed with the advice of my main supervisor and submitted my thesis. But of course, I also went back to my co-supervisor and told her, okay, this is what I did, and submitted. And she said, oh yeah, maybe, maybe you will pass with major corrections. She said that. All right, maybe you will pass with major corrections. And later she said, her policy, the way she supervises her student is this: she will not let her student submit her thesis unless she is 60% sure that the student would pass. So that is her way of doing it, and she was right. She was right. I presented, I had my viva and I passed with major corrections, with corrections to make. But like I said, listen to your supervisor. All right. Okay. Very, very important to listen to your supervisor. Okay, these are some comments. All right, these are some comments to the student who submitted his thesis and did his viva. The candidate is suggested to write the problem statement from the practical gap, from the research gap, and from the theoretical gap perspective. So at least the examiners wanted the student to mention this, to show that he is able to identify the gap that resulted in him doing the research on training needs analysis. And each research question should be supported by each research gap. So this is another thing also. So whatever gaps that you identify, so you want to have it as a research question. And then he also suggests, the examiner also suggested that the candidate has to revise the statement for research question number 5, which reminds me, I remember once I was examining a thesis that the research questions are not related at all with the problem statement. it was not discussed at all. Suddenly, the candidate comes out with the research questions. Suddenly, he wants to research on this variable. Suddenly, he wants to address the second variable, whereas it was not even discussed in the problem statement. So you do not want to do that. You do not want that to happen in your writing. Okay, these are some examples of words that you want to use when you write your research objectives. For example, to identify, to determine, to examine, to measure, to investigate, to explore, to develop, to discuss, to ascertain, to study. You know, these are some. But of course, there are many other words that you can use to show what you plan to do with your research. The next section is the significance of the study. Why the study is important. Okay, why the study is important. Why there is a need to conduct the study. So you want to mention, that's why you want to address or research on problems that are relevant and timely to the academic community, to the business community. You want your study to be, you know, very rigorous, empirically, conceptually, analytically, you know. You also want to conduct a study that would result in conceptual or substantive insights and findings that would make an, you know, addition or an incremental addition to the existing knowledge base, to the existing knowledge corpus. So you want to talk about you know, implications or contributions that would capture the attention of the practitioner community. So you want to show that your study is important, your study is significant. And normally also students would write in terms of practical significance, in terms of theoretical significance, in terms of methodological or conceptual or empirical significance. So you describe your contribution, the potential contribution of your study. You talk about who would be able to make use of the knowledge of the results of your study to make better decisions, to improve on policy. That's why, for example, in your chapter 5, you will talk about, you know, theoretical contribution, practical contribution, policy contribution. You also want to talk about in your significance of the study in terms of how it would advance science, you know, and also other uses of the new information. Okay, let me now. Okay. Okay, I see also a lot of discussion in the chat. All right, I was just referring to the things that the question that were asked in the Q&A session.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions in the chat, Prof. And there's also like, I can see 2 participants raising their hand. Do you want us to allow the mic now?
Yeah, sure, boleh, can.
Okay, perhaps the Niha.
Okay, who would like to ask the question? Yeah.
I think Mr. Kam Hong An.
Okay. Anyone would like to ask a question? Who someone who raised their hand, unless they accidentally raise their hand.
We wait for the IT personnel to allow their mic.
Okay.
Yes.
But I also see that
So
quite a number also help to respond in the chat as well. You know.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, Miss Priya, you can ask the question directly to Prof.
Good morning, Prof. I have a
Can you speak louder, please, Priya? We cannot hear you.
Yeah, can I hear you, Priya?
Can hear me now?
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, good morning, Prof.
Morning.
Okay, Prof, I have two questions. Okay, the first one, what I would like to ask for the research gaps, can it be a combination of multiple gaps?
Yeah, of course, it can be a combination of multiple gaps. The thing is, you basically you want to show that your study would be addressing certain gaps. So it can be a combination of few gaps, of course. Yeah.
Okay, thank
And
you.
your
And then,
second question?
okay, my second question. Okay, when a student about to start with the thesis, right? So the most important thing for them to begin with, is it with the conceptual framework, or I mean, is it with the concept? They need to start with the conceptual framework on what they are going to study about.
When this is what in you were saying
When you are about to start with the thesis, right? So I mean, we haven't started with any of this chapter 1, 2, or 3. So I'm asking whether when we are about to start this research, I mean, exploring this research for the study. So is the conceptual framework is the most important, the very first thing that we need to tackle, even before we begin with the chapter 1.
having a framework in mind would help you a lot in the sense that it would help convince your supervisor that yes, this is your contribution. Yes, your study would now add a new element to the existing, to the existing knowledge on the thing that you are doing. So that would help a lot, of course. So that's why when we do our reading, all right, when we do our reading, we would come across all the different frameworks that have been tested, that has been done, and then you look at possibilities of adding on certain elements or certain variables to the framework. And then if you are able to do that, having that framework in hand would help your supervisor to agree with carry on, proceed, and all that. But what my students would do is they would do the write up, and then in the process also they also present to me their framework, and then let me know which part is their contribution to the knowledge.
Okay, okay, Prof. Thank you very much. Understand.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Priya. Those who have raised their hand, maybe we can.
Yeah, Zaitun also asked what is the difference of significance of study at chapter 1 and contribution. Zaitun, the significance is you are telling why your study is important, why why it is important theoretically, why it is important practically, but in your chapter 5 you have actually conducted the study, you have actually collected your data, and you analyze your data, and then you find certain results, right? You have certain results, and then these results would contribute to further understanding about the theory, further understanding about the business, further understanding about the policies, So that would be your, your chapter 5 part. So there is a difference between the significance part as well as the contribution part in the end in your chapter 5. Okay. All right. Let me continue. These are some comments. All right. These are some comments that were given to my students. Right. These were some comments were given to my students. The significance of the study section. So the examiner said, a candidate needs to explain and elaborate more on the theoretical and practical contributions of the study. Just now I just mentioned, right? At least you want to talk about your theoretical significance, your practical significance. This part, this significance of this part, you have yet to conduct the study. You're still talking about it. You are discussing about it, the contributions, why the study is important. And then also the second comment there, the theoretical contribution of this study is not shown against current theories in HRM, strategic management, project management. So what you want to do, all right, when you write your significance of the study section, you want to show that how the study would contribute in terms of that and how it is linked and related to whatever theories that are in place that are existing. Candidate must discuss the theoretical contribution against the contingency theory and resource-based view theory that the conceptual framework is based on. So you have to relate it, because you say you want to use contingency theory, you want to use resource-based view theory, but you did not mention anything about it in terms of in your section on the significance of the study section. So it has to be related. Remember everyone that everything that you write, it needs to be linked to one another. Your chapter 1 has to be linked to your chapter 2, your chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5. Even when you discuss your findings, when you write your conclusions, you want to again relate it to the literature that you have included in your chapter 2. So it is a work that is interrelated. It does not stand on its own. So you want to do that. So you do not want to, you do not want to do this. You discuss, for example, you discuss contingency theory and resource-based view theory in your problem statement, but you do not mention anything about it in your significance of the study section, for example. And then you do not also not to miss discussing about it in your chapter 5 in terms of your how your results contribute towards further understanding of the contingency theory, how your results contribute towards the further understanding of the resource-based view theory, for example. So it's that you have to do, that you need to show the link between all those things. Liana asked a question. You said earlier that each research gap is parallel with one research question. Is it possible to identify only one gap, therefore one main objective, but multiple, example, 3 research questions? That would be possible as well, Liana. All right. The most important thing is that it addresses different parts of that gap, different elements of that gap, so you can have that different questions. What are the most important points to be highlighted in motivation of the study? Motivation of the study, I did not even mention the section of motivation of the study, but there are, of course, There are, of course, some universities that would request students to write what is the motivation of the study. I believe it would be more related towards the contribution that you would be able to make, the contribution that you will be able to make. Most probably as well, you also want to mention about why you believe the research is important to be conducted. All right, why it's important to be the need to conduct the study. Okay, Burhan. Imtiaz is asking some light on how to find out theoretical gaps, some pre-considerations. Usually, all right, what you do, you read about a particular theory, all right, you read about a particular theory, and you see what previous studies have been done, that have been conducted using that particular theory, and you think about how you want that theory is applicable to your research. And then you may also want to think about how you believe there should be some other element that needs to be addressed by that theory that has not been addressed. So in that sense, you contribute towards that gap in the theory. But of course, you want to find the right theory, right? You want to find the right theory to be applied to your research. You do not want to, for example, all right, this was the case of one of my other students. He used the technology acceptance model, right? Technology acceptance model theory to do a research, and there was a new theory that was developed, UTAU as well as UTAU2, for example. So the examiner questioned why use this theory when there are existing and more advanced models that was developed by the same author, by the same researcher. All right. So if you use the older version of the theory, of course you would identify some elements that have not been addressed, when actually you should also refer to the latest model that has been used, that are being discussed by the authors. So there you want to talk about the elements of the things that you want to contribute. Zuraina, let's say our findings is against the concept of theory. I would need you to elaborate on that, Zuraina. What do you mean by your findings is against the theory? Kun, briefly distinguish between the conceptual framework and the theoretical framework. Conceptual framework basically are the framework that involves all the variables that you want to use, right? In your study. The theoretical framework basically would also include the theories that you want to use, right? The theories that you want to use, and then in your theoretical framework also you want to show how your overarching theory or your underpinning theory explains the relationship between the different variables in your framework. And then also usually in your theoretical framework also you have your your hypothesis, and then you want to show the link between those with the theories that you are using. I think also that answers Ruth Aruna Salam question. Momo, Teslim, Zachary, Prof, please, why getting information from previous work in regards reference to the work? Do one has to write exactly the same words as the author did? No, Momo, you want to, basically what you want to do, you want to refer to their work and then you want to mention their work in relation to the work that you are doing. Again, you want to show that you are doing something that is related to that, but at the same time, you do not want to forget what others have done, what others have done. So this is a sort of acknowledgement to the work that has been done previously about your research topic. Okay, Momo. So it's important. You cannot write your thesis without having the context. You cannot write a thesis without referring to previous work. So because if you don't refer to previous work, most probably what you are doing has been done 10 or 15 times already, for example. So that's why you want to refer to previous work. But of course, you do not have to write exactly like what the authors wrote, because that would result in your turn-in similarity index being high. So you want to paraphrase, or even if, let's say, you want to cite verbatim, you use inverted commas to say that those are the exact words that were used by the author. So there are different ways of you citing the work of others. So that is another, I believe that would be covered by Prof. Hassan next week, right? So he would be able to help you with that, how to cite and all that. You do not want to just copy and paste from the work of others, because that would result in a turn-in similarity index of 77% or 99%. Which reminds me of another story. I was the examiner of one PhD student in another university, another private university. So what happened was this: when they invited me, they would send me the thesis, the soft copy of the thesis, and everything. So what I did was I uploaded the thesis in turn-in, and then the result was a 75% similarity index, right? 75% similarity index. You would not be allowed to submit a thesis if your similarity index is like that. For immediately your thesis should be rejected, because you want to have I think normally the universities would decide on less than 20% similarity index. So this particular student was 75%, was it 77? But it was very, very high. So what I did was I called up the director of the postgraduate research and told him that the turn-in is very, very high. Are you sure we want to proceed? I'm going to fail the student, I told him. And he said, our library has also checked the thesis, and then the library, the result of the turn-in check by the library was less than 30%. I said, no, it's 70%. So do you want to proceed? He said, yes, proceed, please come and we conduct the viva. Okay. So on the Monday, I went to the university again before the start of the viva. I told the director, I asked the director, are you sure we want to proceed with this? Rather than allow him to have time and do the necessary. And then he said he has come all the way from the United Arab Emirates for this. Let's listen to him. again, I told the director I'm going to fail him. He said, never mind, listen to him. So, presented, all right, presented, and he had his notes, his cards prepared with him. So he presented. So I jotted down the things that he presented. And then during the question and answer, so I asked questions about his analysis. He said, you know, about he did this analysis, he did this analysis, he did this analysis. One is a confirmatory analysis. So I asked him, can you explain to me what you mean by this analysis that you did? And he said, I read about it, but I forgot. Okay, I read about it, but I forgot. And a few other questions also, he answered the same way. I read about it, but I forgot. So that is a big no-no, everyone. All right, you want to be able to answer the questions that the examiners ask you. So you have to be well versed with every single thing that you wrote in your thesis. You cannot get away by saying I read, but I forgot. All right, you will not be able to get away with that. Okay, so be sure, have everything at your fingertips. Okay, and be confident about it. So that was one thing. And then I started asking him, do you know that this page of your thesis is similar to the thesis, this page of another thesis? Do you know that this page of your thesis is similar to this page of the journal? Exactly the same as the journal. Do you know that this page of your thesis is exactly the same of another reference? Then he looked at me, then he looked at the director, and he was not able to answer. Right? He was not able to answer. So the director asked him to leave, and you know, the result was obvious. Right? The result was obvious. So you want to make sure that you know yes, you refer, but you do not want to plagiarize other people's work. Do not ever plagiarize other people's work. Do not take someone else's work but claim it is your work. Meaning that you take someone's word but you did not mention the name of the person who said that. So that is plagiarism. Plagiarism is an academic crime. Even if you have received your your PhD, your PhD can be withdrawn from you, can be taken back from you if, let's say, 5 years down the line, someone found out that your work was plagiarized. I think that happens to one person in Australia. I think the one professor was looking at the thesis, and as he was reading, he felt that those were taken somewhere else, but was not acknowledged. So he checked and he found out that the work was plagiarized, and then the university withdrew the PhD that was awarded to him. Okay. Plagiarism. Again, Momo asked the question, can you explain to us in regards to plagiarism, sir? Yes, plagiarism is, like I said just now, it's an academic crime. Basically, what you do is you take someone else's work without acknowledging the person's work. Okay, so and then this would be detected when you run it in Turnitin or some other plagiarism checker. So that is why, for example, all right, that's why, for example, what students do, they would send their thesis for paraphrasing or editing or related work. So there are services available that would help you lessen the similarity index when it is run into the in. So there are techniques, there are ways on how you want to cite someone, but the most important thing, of course, you know, when you take someone else's work, someone else's phrase, always remember to mention that person's name. So for that, you would not, you know, even if it is detected as similar, but because you put the person's name at the end, so it would not be considered as you plagiarizing the person's work. Okay, Zuraina. All right. Let's say political cost theory stated that large firms will practice income decreasing, but our findings shows large firm practice income increasing. So what you do, all right, you report your findings, all right, you report your findings. Why your findings would be different? Let's assuming that you have followed the proper way of analyzing or running your data analysis and everything. So there must be something, you know, as long as you have run it based on what is the prescribed way of analyzing it, and then your findings is different, for example, so you just state that it's different, right? These are the results. So that's why earlier I talked about, you know, controversies, contradictions, and all that. So whatever findings that you have, you report your findings. Just report the findings accordingly, and explain and justify and argue why you think it is, you know, it is such. Most probably, maybe, you know, it is not something that has been, you know, looked into before, so that's why you find that result. But there is also another probability that maybe there is something that is not right about how you analyze the data. That's why you get those results. At the same time, everyone, I always tell my students also, do not worry about your results being different, right? Do not worry about that. What you want to do is you want to, yeah, this is the result, but you relate it to the literature. Most probably, all right, when you do your literature review, you would include literature that you know, that supports your finding. You would also include literature that does not support your finding. So you relate it to, you know, both literature that you have discussed earlier. Priya, again, another question. How many theories should be in PhD thesis? Is there any requirement for one on number of theories, or it has to be, or can be combination of multiple theories that supported the conceptual framework? If Priya, if you have one theory that explains the whole framework, so be it, use that one theory. If you feel that the theory only explains a portion of your framework, so you may want to have another theory that explains the remaining part of the framework. So that is when you want to use two or more theories. All right, the number of theories that you use depends on whether the theory explains your research framework. Okay, so that would be the answer to that. Again, refer to your supervisor. Your supervisor would provide you with more advice. If our study was mixed method, is it compulsory to develop concept framework and theoretical framework, or just develop a conceptual framework? Having frameworks that helps explain your work would be helpful, actually. Okay, I would answer it based on that, using that argument, meaning that you want to be able to show to the reader, you want to be able to show to the examiner that, you know, you have both frameworks to help explain whatever that you plan to do, the mixed method that you plan to do. Sometimes it depends on the examiners as well. Sometimes some examiners would be happy even if you have a conceptual framework, but some examiners would insist that you need to also include your theoretical framework. Okay, I hope that helps you in your thoughts, Rose. But then again, Rose, if let's say you have not done your proposal defense, decide on one thing that you want to do. You do it at your proposal defense and see what the examiners say. So if they say include this, then you are okay. So you add on. If they are happy with what you do, then you are okay as well. Zhen Jiao King, how many pages or words research methodology need to write? The research methodology meaning research methodology chapter, Zen, or what do you mean? However, everyone, I don't remember telling my students, your chapter 1 must be this many words. Your chapter 2 must be this many words. Your chapter 3 must be this many words. But of course, you keep in mind, all right? You keep in mind the requirements of your university, all right? The requirements of university. For example, some universities stated that the final thesis should not be more than 240 pages, excluding references. So you have to work along that number. Some universities also decide on number of words. For example, in City University, we decided between 60,000 to 80,000 words. So you play with those number of words. But like I said, I don't really insist on my students. Okay, you must have this number of words in this chapter, in this chapter, in this chapter. You write it until you believe that it is a good chapter that could stand the test of the examiners. Anis, how do we determine the significance of the research when the examiner asks the question, so what? So if the examiner said, so what? Meaning that he is not, he or she is not convinced that it is a good enough significance. Okay, it's not a good enough significance that you are telling him or her. So that's why under significance, you talk about theoretical significance, you talk about practical significance, you talk about other types of significance under that. So remember also, everyone, when examiners ask you questions, they are trying to understand you, right? They are trying to understand you. Sometimes they ask you questions because they want to help you clarify your thoughts. Okay, they want to help you clarify your thoughts and be able to share what you feel. Remember also, everyone, when you have reached the stage of your viva, you need to be the expert. You know, you have already reached that stage where you are an expert. You may even know more about your research as compared to your supervisor, as compared to the examiners even. Okay, they may have some general knowledge about your topic, but you should know more than them, unless the examiner has his thesis is also similar to what your topic is all about. So he would know in and out of what your topic is all about. Okay, so be convincing in your in your sharing, in your in your arguments in your presentation. All right, Anis, I hope that answers your question. From anonymous attendee, can we make the knowledge gap in some location, for example, as the problem statement of the research? That would be a contextual gap. For example, this research was done in some other countries, but it is not done in Southeast Asia, for example. So you address that contextual gap only, right? But like I said earlier, addressing just the contextual gap would not be sufficient, right? Would not be sufficient. Shim, that is there a way of writing the introduction from a broader topic before the issue of the study? How this concept can be applied to the introduction chapter? Yeah, correct. That is the same thing that you do when you write your literature review chapter as well. You do it from the broad view, and then you it's like a funnel, and then you focus on the specific issue. Talk about the big issues, but you do not want to dwell on it too much. What is the bigger issue, but later you focus on what you are actually doing, Shim. How do we determine the scope, whether it is significant enough to be categorized as a DBA research instead of daily lifestyle? What should the candidate do when the examiner does not see the significance? Normally, Anis, the process, this is an ongoing process, right? This is an ongoing process. Even before you even meet the examiner, you would be meeting with your supervisor, all right? And then you will not be allowed to even sit for your proposal defense unless your supervisor and the supervisory committee is happy that you are ready. So the fact that they allowed you to do the proposal defense, it shows that they feel that there is substance in your research. Okay, there is substance in your research. So if you have got the nod from your supervisor and supervisory committee, you should be okay. All right, so you would not fail your proposal defense. Okay, and normally also any. Okay, let's say you have passed your proposal defense, you have collected your data, and and as well as analyze, write your thesis, and you go for your viva. The process is like this. Still, your thesis would go through your supervisor and supervisory committee. They must be happy. They must be convinced that it is a good enough thesis to be submitted for examination. Okay, so there are many buffers in place before you reach the viva stage. Okay, so the fact that your supervisors allows you to submit your thesis shows that they have confidence that you would be able to meet it. To meet at least the criteria of a PhD or DBA research. Okay, like what I told about my second supervisor, who said maybe you would pass with 60 with major correction. Okay, so she has that. So but of course there is no perfect thesis. There would be flaws here and there. But if your supervisors feel that it is good enough to be submitted, submit, and then listen to the comments and then make the necessary corrections. Reminds me of another story where I was the examiner of this particular student. Of course, the supervisor's responsibility is very, very, very important as well. The supervisor must read the thesis. There is no way a supervisor should never not do that. No, he or she must read your thesis before your submission. So this is what happened to one particular student who I examined. The supervisor did not read the thesis, right? The supervisor did not read the thesis. So it became very problematic. The thesis became very problematic. Even before, this is about your question about whether you would fail, right? Whether you would fail. So before the Viva, before you conducted the Viva, so we had a discussion with the examiners. One of the examiners wanted to fail her, right? One of the examiners wanted to fail her. Okay, one of the examiners wanted to fail her. I wanted to ask her to resubmit, right? Not fail, resubmit. External examiner says, good thesis, minor correction. Okay, three different views. Good thesis, minor correction. University from UK. Me, resubmit the thesis. Another examiner, fail. My input to the discussion was, let's listen to her and then decide later what we want to do. Okay, and she presented. All right, she presented. What the problem was this: there were so many flaws in her thesis. There were so many claims in her thesis that were not true, meaning that she made up statements, she made up references, saying that this person said this person said this person said this, when they did not say it at all. Okay, they did not say the things that she put in her thesis. How do I know? I checked every single argument that she put in her thesis. So she said this person said this. So I checked it. I looked for the article. The person said something else. And then she made a claim. This contributes to this supply chain performance. So I looked for that article. That article said it is not supply chain performance, but for some other organization, not supply chain. So she just changed the word that was written by that author to supply chain performance because she was doing a research on supply chain performance. So that is a very wrong thing to do, right? So these are the things that we detected in her thesis, and and the supervisor allowed her to submit the thesis. So during the Viva, so I asked her, show us this reference that you said that this person said this. She cannot show it. Show us this reference that this person said this. So she was looking in her laptop, looking here, looking there, cannot find. Show us this reference that you said this is this. Looking her laptop, cannot find. Because those persons, those authors that she cited did not say what she said. Okay, so that itself is, a reason why she would not pass her Viva. There are so many flaws in her thesis. And it resulted because, but of course the student has to check, of course, but the supervisor has to also check, has to also make sure that the work is proper. So it became an issue. And of course the supervisor was angry with me and as well as the other examiner, and we had a meeting and we showed him exactly where those flaws are, where the mistakes are, what were the things that she claimed what that was not true. So we even showed him the articles that where she claimed this is it, but it's not what she said. She even said her questionnaire was taken from an article from one person. So we showed the article by that person where she said that she took the questionnaire from. And then that article is about a qualitative study. And there was no questionnaire in there. She was doing a quantitative study. And she said she took the questionnaire from that article. So, you know, so that's why we decided, we didn't fail her, but we asked her to resubmit. Okay, we asked her to resubmit. But like I said just now, Anis, you would not fail if the process has been done properly and all that. You know, you get, make sure that you ask your supervisor to read your work. But of course, you also need to make sure that your work is properly done, you refer the proper one. What's the difference between model and thesis? I'm not so sure if I depending on your subject area, Ajmer, I believe. If let's say if your supervisory committee believes that, you know, just a model is sufficient, so be it. All right, so be it. Most probably that there has been, you know, precedents that even if you make use of a model, it is sufficient. That is okay with that. Ame, may I know if it is accepted if I use the same definition from chapter 1 to define the chapter 2? Of course, you can use the same, but you do not want to cut and paste chapter 1 to chapter 2 or cut and paste chapter 2 to chapter 1. Okay, yes, you can do that. You still can use because it's still related, Ame. Okay, then Ruth, in a survey, 471 respondents responded. How many can be used to run a pre and post? I will leave this for Prof. Roslina, right, Ruth? Remember to come when Prof. Roslina have her session and ask her that question. Okay, Ruth. Azrin, in research study problem, do we need to tell the examiner first level, real world, second level, business challenges, third level, research gap? For research gap, do we need to tell inside scope, outside scope? That is very detailed, Azrin. I believe your examiner would be very happy with that. And then we have someone whose name is in Arabic. I think it's Munir. I cannot really see. Munir, I think Munir is the one that I can see. All right, then, but the question is, write up in English should not be a problem due to the final checking from the expert. However, not everybody can speak fluent English. Can the panel will argue with these matters on the final decision making? Okay, I believe your question is related to the Viva, right? I believe your research is related to the Viva. Okay. Yes, of course. We examiners understand that, you know, students may not be fluent in English. Of course, we understand. But at the same time, also you may want to come prepared with your presentation. That's why you have your notes with you. That's why you want to practice a few times before your Viva. So you get, for example, you can create your group, your PhD group, whereby you can present to the group and get their comments. So practice makes perfect. Okay, you may even prepare a script for every slide that you plan to write. Okay, you may even want to have a script. Okay, this is for those who has challenges in terms of speaking fluently. So by having the script, okay, you and practicing, you will be at ease when you present during your Viva or even during your proposal defense. Nobody is perfect, you know, even me also, you know, when I present also, sometimes I get stuck during the presentation. My very first experience of presenting to a group of people was that, I'm supposed to conduct a workshop for 6 hours, right? And I prepared slides that I think would be enough for 6 hours. But how wrong I was, because I finished the 90 slides within half an hour only, I think. All right, so I got into trouble. So practice, all right, practice and practice and practice. So you would be able to do that. Prepare a script. Even some of my students also, I ask them to prepare some scripts before they present, if they have that challenge. Okay, Rose. Right, thank you, sure. In scientific papers, I actually find it difficult to identify theories used and easily identify variables. There are, this is the question from anonymous attendee. There are, you look, you open up an article from any of the websites, for example, Science Direct or Taylor and Francis, Sage, every single article, you would be able to identify. They may even have a framework in those articles, and then they will mention theories, the theories that they use. But of course, some articles do not mention the theories, but there are other articles that mention the theories as well as the variables, especially if they have a framework. Okay. These are the questions in the question and answer box. I'm not so sure how many we have in the chat box. But later, let me continue a bit more, all right? And then we can start looking at questions again after this. Okay, this was the comment on the significance of the study part. This is the scope of the study. The next section is the scope of the study. The proposed boundaries should be imposed. What are the boundaries that that you are going to conduct your research on? So you want to have that scope of, you do not, for example, let's say you are doing a research on SMEs, for example. So are you doing SMEs, a research on SMEs for the whole world, or you have narrowed down the scope to Malaysia only, for example, or you have narrowed down the scope to Klang Valley only, for example? So that is about the scope that of your study. Who exactly would be involved, which area would be involved, which, and then, so that's why you have to sorry, you have to define the boundary of your study. Maybe, for example, again, you just want, even SMEs, for example, you just want to focus on selected aspects of the SMEs. Only these SMEs who are within these categories, for example, or SMEs within this particular industry only, for example, only SMEs in F&B, or only SMEs in hospitality, for example. So you decide on that, on the boundary of your work, on your areas of interest, on your sampling selection. Only these samples would be involved, or only on a certain number of the population, not the whole population, but a narrowed population. Like I said now, I said whether SME in the world, or SME in Southeast Asia, or SME in Malaysia, smaller SME in Klang Valley. So smaller in terms of your scope. So these are some comments to my student. He said that you need to relate it to the background of the study. Then the candidate would be able to summarize the scope of the study if the background of the study is well written. So it is about the relationship between the background of the study and the background of the study. Okay. Next section is operational definition of key terms. Okay, this section basically refers to the terms that you are using in your research. What are your terms? What are your keywords? Your key terms. For example, if you are doing a study on SMEs, so what is the operational definition of SMEs? If you are doing a study on brand loyalty, what is the operational definition of brand loyalty? If you are doing a study on turnover intention, so what is the operational definition of turnover intention? If you are doing on sustainable development, so what is the definition? So every single term that you would discuss in your work, especially in those that are included in your framework, should be included here in your section on operational definition of terms, operational definition of key terms. So these terms, you write, and then it is written for knowledgeable peers, people who know, not people from other disciplines. Again, this one sometimes depends on the examiner. Sometimes they want you to have reference. You refer to people, what are the definitions of other people, but what is your own definition of that term? Yeah, you can refer to A, B, C, and D, whatever people define, but for the purpose of your study, your definition would be what, So you define the terms accordingly, right? You define the terms accordingly. So these are comments for my student. Operationalization of key terms and definitions, and definition is vague and confusing. Okay, you do not want to do that. If you do that, you get into trouble with the examiners. The examiners may think deeply whether they want to let you pass, or they say like what, Gandalf, you shall not pass, to the monster. Some definitions are superficially described and does not clearly indicate which specific definition was adopted. So again, you want to be very clear. You want to be very specific. And the next comment, the term training needs analysis and training needs competencies were used interchangeably in the write-up. So he needs to show how he has operationalized the terms TNA and TNC. I think also that there was a point where the examiners suggested that he should just use one, not both. Okay, then we come to the second last part of the chapter 1, all right, which is your organization of the thesis, all right, the organization of the thesis. So here in this section, basically what you do, you write what you put in your chapter 1. So chapter 1 describes this. Chapter 2 outlines this, for example. Chapter 3, what? Chapter 4, what? Chapter 5 is about what? So that section of your thesis of your first chapter is just telling the audience what to expect in all the chapters. In chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, as well as if you have other chapters. And this the same student that I gave examples about. So when he wanted to submit his thesis, all right, when I wanted to submit his thesis, he wanted to submit his thesis. He showed me, okay, sir, this is my thesis. Can I submit this? He has already written 5 chapters. He wants to submit. However, in this section of his chapter 1, he only described 3 chapters only. He didn't say anything about chapter 4. He didn't say anything about chapter 5. And then that shows that he still used the same chapter that he submitted during the proposal defense. All right, because he didn't include chapter 4 and chapter 5. So I told him, where is your chapter 4? Where is your chapter 5? Isn't chapter 4 and chapter 5 is also inside your thesis? Okay. By the way, this same student is already at the stage of submitting his corrections already. You know, he passed his viva, alhamdulillah. Right? He passed his viva, alhamdulillah. Now he has written a few times. He's made the corrections a few times and submitted his table of corrections to me, but I have rejected his corrections, I think already 4 or 5 times already. Why? Because he did not address the comments of the examiner. So if let's say the examiner says that abstract is too long, so in your response you need to say something that, you know, the abstract has now been rewritten and now it's more concise. So you need to address every single comment that was written by the examiner, so that, okay, they know that you have done what they have asked you, and then they would be happy to sign off that your corrections have been completed. Right? You do not want them to see, you know, this has not been addressed, this has not been addressed, this has not been addressed, and then they return the thesis to you. You do not want that to happen. So that is what basically I'm doing. I need to check that he has addressed all those comments, and hopefully the examiners would just browse and take a look and happy to sign off the thesis, and then he can graduate and attend the convocation this November, inshallah. Okay, now we come to the last section of the chapter 1, which is the chapter summary. So earlier I said that your introduction section should be similar to your chapter summary. All right, some students, they put conclusion, but I would rather suggest that you use chapter summary rather than conclusion. Conclusion, leave it for the last chapter. So chapter summary is the summary of chapter 1. So basically you write about what you wrote in your chapter 1, only that this time you just say this chapter had highlighted. Earlier you said will discuss, right? So this one is had highlighted the background of the study, the problem statement, the research questions, research objectives, significance of study, research hypothesis, scope and limitation of study, and so on. The next chapter will discuss the literature review or something like that. Okay, so that brings us to the last section of your chapter 1. I have also included in the slides, which I will share with you later. The organizer will share with you later. These are some useful links that you can refer to. You can, you know, when you look for articles, you can look for them in Science Direct, or you know, and I'm sure to our anonymous questioner, if you look for articles in Science Direct, for sure you will be able to find frameworks. For sure you will be able to find theories that were used in those research. However, everyone remember that, you know, when you read articles, the article sometimes is just a portion of the thesis. All right, it's just a portion, a small portion of the thesis. Sometimes there are even authors who, from one thesis, they can produce 10, 20, 30, 40 articles from one thesis. Okay, so when you read their article, so that particular article is just one portion of the 200 and 300 page thesis. So remember that. All right. So Science Direct is a good source. I believe your universities would you know, would have some would have subscribed to it. Some universities do, some universities don't, depending on whether the university is willing to pay the subscription fees or not. All right. Also, there is also a link on Journal Finder in Science Direct, where you can find certain journals. You can also refer to Springer. You can also refer to Taylor and Francis, Sage in the Science. You can also look for articles in Scopus, for example. You can also look for articles in Emerald, Emerald Insights, especially if you are doing business, business research, business related research. So Emerald Insight would be a good source for you to go to. Okay. These are some links to thesis. All right, some links to thesis where you can find thesis that have been written about your topic, for example. So you look at this thesis, what have been done, what have been written about it. You do not want to, you do not want to write about the same thing because it has been done before. So you can refer to, for example, ethos, e-thesis online service. So that is the address. And then in the, when you go there in the search box, look for, let's say you are doing a research on brand loyalty, for example. So you go to that website, this ethos website, type a brand loyalty, and then you can find a list of thesis that has been written before related to brand loyalty. Same thing goes for HQU Scholars Hub, Scholar Works at GSU, DSpace at MIT, Thesis Canada. These are some pages, some links that you can go and find and see how people write, right? How people write, how, for example, you can see from their work how they write their problem statement, how they write their research questions, how they develop their research framework, theoretical framework, how they analyze their data, the tools that they use to analyze the data. But at the same time, remember that some theses are for partial requirement. Some are for full requirement. So you need to be careful in terms of how the level of their discussion. This is the Trove Australian Decision Thesis. This is the address. This NDLTD, Global ET Research, DAT Europe Scholars Bank, Aura at Oxford University. All these are links that you can use to look for references. Here is Open Access Thesis and Dissertation, oatd.org. This is also something, a place useful to find thesis. For those who wants to have some guide in writing your thesis, the Academic Phrase Bank from the University of Manchester is a good website. All right, it is indeed a very good website where you learn. They show you how to write your chapter 1, how to write your problem statement, how to write your argument. Every single thing that you need to write in a thesis, the guide is there. You have a guide there. They give you samples, they give you examples. What are the things that you can write? How you write? So this would be a very helpful website, especially for those whose first language is not English. So you can see how and make use of the examples that they use. Okay. Earlier, I believe Professor Datuk Surveyor Dr. Omar mentioned something about this being a micro-credential certificate if you want, right? So for the purpose of you getting a micro-credential for attending this webinar, So these are the questions that you want to answer. It's just 1 or 2 page only. I did not ask you to write a 40-page summary, right? So it's just a 1 or 2 page summary of your chapter 1, of what you think your chapter 1 is going to be about. Okay, this would later be added to the assignment for chapter 2, the assignment for chapter 3, assignment for chapter 4, as well as assignment for chapter 5. So if you have you do all the 5 micro credential assignments for all the 5 chapters, so the organizer would then award you with a micro credential certificate saying that you have attended this webinar on research methodology. All right, if that is what you want. But of course, there is a fee that they are charging for the admin fees to to do the processing and everything. Okay, so you think about chapter 1, the things that I've said about, I've talked to you about in the past 2 hours plus. So you write a 1 to 2 page summary of your chapter 1, say something about your background of study, say something about your problem statement, say something about your research questions and research objectives, say something about significance of the study, say something about scope of the study, and then you end your summary with the potential contributions of your study. Okay, so that would be your assignment for this webinar if you want to get this micro credential. As you know, micro credentials is now one of the things that people look for. It is something that would be an added advantage for for an individual who has micro credentials in everything, micro credentials in data analytics, for example, micro credential in AI, micro credentials in, so this, if you want, you can have a micro credential on research methodology. So when you have done this, it's not something that you have to to break your head about it. I'm sure you have it already in your laptop. You just put together and send to me, right? Submit to me using this email address, amir.hamzah@city.edu.my. So that is my email address that you may want to send your assignments to if you choose to opt for the micro credential of the research methodology webinar. Okay, now let us look at the questions that we have. Okay, Guzman. Conceptual, operational definitions are two different things. Operational definition is all about to measure, how to measure, correct, Guzman? So chapter 1 is more of operational definition, Guzman, all right? But then again, if your supervisor wants you to put your conceptual definition in chapter 1, by all means do that, okay? Can you send the registration links for the rest of the upcoming session to the participants? That you will receive an email from the organizer 1 day before the next session of the webinar. Okay, let's look at the chat box. Or I think if you have questions, you can immediately ask me live. Okay, open to questions. Anyone would like to ask a question?
Prof, good afternoon. I'm Anis here. I would like to ask the question about this micro credential. I'm currently in the process of doing my dissertation. If I were to submit the the homework for the micro-credential, can I actually propose the thing that I really want to do? And will you actually give a feedback whether there is anything that I need to improve or is not in that case?
Okay, if you like any, yes, I will provide some thoughts on the one that you submit.
Okay,
Of
thank you
course,
so
I
much.
will be glad to do that.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you.
Prof, I got one short question, Prof, on behalf of my student who is driving right now.
Okay.
In regard to chapter 1, is there a difference between a DBA and the PhD research?
Okay, there is actually, it's more of you deciding whether you want to do a DBA or PhD. And normally someone would do a PhD if someone plans to be in the academic world, he wants to be in the academia. So you do a PhD where, you know, the research is more rigorous, I would say, more detailed, and then you need to clearly show that there is contribution to the, you know, to the knowledge corpus. As compared to a DBA, you know, as compared to a DBA where the focus is not so much on the theoretical contribution and all that. It's more of the practical part of things. Even when we examine DBA dissertations also, we would always be advised that this is not a PhD thesis, this is a DBA dissertation. So it is a less, I would say that it is less, the examination will be less stringent as compared to a PhD thesis. But you decide if you want to do a DBA. But of course, at the end of the process, you would have a doctor in front of your name. Okay, whether you do a DBA or whether you do a PhD or you do an EDD, you still have a doctor in front of your name.
Hello.
Yes.
Can I just ask, because I'm trying to prepare something, a topic for my DBA. So, I mean, how is it like, I know that I am like, how to choose a suitable topic for the DBA title?
The best person to talk to would be your supervisor.
Oh, okay, I see.
Your supervisor would be the best person to advise you.
Okay, thanks.
By the way, where are you doing your DBA?
UNITAR.
Oh, in UNITAR. Okay, talk to Prof Hassan.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Sorry, please. When is the next webinar coming up?
The next webinar is next week. Next week Saturday. We would have
next week Saturday.
We would have the webinars every week at the same time.
Yeah.
Is that Abdul Said?
No, this is Mohammed Tasmin.
Okay. So we would have it every week. So this week is next week is chapter 2 and so on.
Yes, for 5 consecutive weeks.
Or 5 mostly, yeah.
Prof Anis again, yeah, Prof Amir.
Yeah,
I would actually want to ask the questions because while this webinar is actually covering all topic on week basis, so I actually presume that it will actually cover all the topic that I need to write. So on weekly basis, we will be submitting all the proposals. So at the end of this course, right, I am actually thinking that I will actually get a complete dissertation topic on at least chapter 1 to 3. Is it? Do I actually have the correct understanding?
That is the correct understanding. Yeah. You would have.
Prof. Thank you so much. I think I find the right channel, and I will write to you, Prof. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Looking forward.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hello, Prof.
Yes.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah.
My question is in respect of the similarity index, what maximum tolerable level of similarity index is acceptable?
Okay, it depends on the university actually. If I remember correctly, UPM only allows 20%. I think most universities allows less, you should be less than 20%. But there are some other universities that will allow slightly higher, which is less than 30%. But when we do our, when we do our research, when you do our writing, you want to make it less as less as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yunusa asks, please, how can one overcome the challenge of a household survey? Household survey. Hold on here. What about to go to the steps of Malaysians to request information even with introduction letter from UPM? So please advise me, Prof, on how to overcome this challenge. Maybe what you want to do is you want to engage some enumerators, enumerators who are Malaysians to help you with this. So enumerators who I believe they would be able to approach these households to request for the information that you need. Okay, rather than you approaching the households yourself. Yes, I believe that would be a challenge because sometimes, okay, this is more of a general understanding the fact that sometimes people are not very trusting of people, even among nations also. You will get people who will not open their doors even to Malaysians itself. So not the challenge is not only for you, it's also a challenge for everyone else. Okay, between problem statement, conceptual framework, which one is more important? I believe both would be important, TS Hizam, because both would help to clarify your thoughts. All right, we will have to clarify your thoughts because your problem statement justifies why there is a need to do your research. Your conceptual framework helps to see where exactly your contribution would be. So both, you need to have both. You need to make sure you have both. Wang Ling is doing Z. Maybe she's falling asleep. Muhammad Burhan, is it compulsory that selected variable student in quantitatively must be theoretically based? Yes, you want to show that the theory that you use explains the relationship between your variables. And then B, I would like to ask, what are the questions that will be asked for Viva Vose? There are so many questions. B, depends. Even the question that they will ask, they ask questions about every single chapter that you write. They ask questions about your problem statement. They ask questions about your research questions. They ask questions about what is the motivation of your study? Why are you doing this study? They ask questions about what is your contribution of your research? Why, how your research would contribute to policy? How your research would contribute to theory? Every single question. I believe B, you can Google and you can search for guides on how to prepare for a Viva Vose. Chapter 1, of course, you need to be able to, to show that your problem statement is good, is clear and all that. What makes me feel to defend, what makes you feel your proposal defense? The simple question and simple answer to that is that you fail to defend it. You fail to defend your idea. when the examiner asked you a question, you didn't answer, which what happened to one student yesterday. I was chairing the session, and then the examiner asked one very basic question. One very basic question. The examiner asked, what is this concept? And then the student is doing his PhD on that concept. Define the concept, the examiner said. And then what the student did was he just sat at the screen and not saying anything for a few minutes. And I asked him, are you going to answer the question? And then he said, I don't have an answer to that question. When actually, that is what he's doing. The same thing, if the student that I said earlier, she was doing her research on supply chain management, and I asked her a question during her proposal defense. What is the definition of supply chain? And she could not answer. She is doing a PhD on supply chain, but she does not know what supply chain is all about. So for sure, she would not be able to make it. All right. Okay. Hold on, yeah. All right. There are questions in this, but I think we are almost out of time. And then okay, if you have questions, write the question to me. Inshallah, I'll find time to answer the questions. And also at the end of my slides just now, I also shared with you my mobile number that you can text me if you want to. But of course, do not text me at 2 a.m. in the morning and ask me, Prof, what is a moderator?
Okay.
All right. Please allow me some time to rest. Okay, I pass back to Puan Laili as the chairperson of this session. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much, Prof. Dr. Amir Hamzah Jantan of City University Malaysia, for sharing with us the introduction topic and for addressing most of the questions asked by the participants. Again, like Prof said, those questions who have not yet been answered, you can email directly to him. Okay, as a postgrad student myself, most of the questions that I have in mind have already been asked by them. Okay, I believe this is such a beneficial session and a hot session as well, especially for those who are still stuck in chapter 1. Okay, all right. To all participants who have not yet registered, please do so by using the link. We have already shared the link in the chat box just now, so that we can have a record of your email address. Okay, and for those who have already registered, you do not have to register again for our next session. So we will invite you directly using the email that you have registered. And also for those who are interested to get the certification or the micro-credential for this research methodology workshop, you will need to do the 3 things, okay? First, you need to attend all the 5 sessions, including this session. So we have another 4 coming up. And then you have to submit the assignment given by Prof just now and by all the speakers and email the assignments to them. And also we will charge you a minimal amount of only 100 ringgit per participant to get the certification. Again, I believe that is a very affordable cost. All right, and ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our today's program. On behalf of the DRB-HICOM University of Automotive Malaysia, I would like to express our utmost gratitude to Prof. Dr. Amir Hamzah Jantan, the Dean of City Graduate School, City University Malaysia, and to all the participants who have actively participated in our today's session. I'm so happy to see all the response coming in. Okay, so please join again for our next session next week on 9th of April, same day, same time, 9 a.m. And next session will be on Chapter 2, Literature Review by Prof. Muhammad Hassan Muhammad Osman of UNITAR International University. So thank you, everyone. Have a nice weekend. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you again, Prof.
Thank you, and happy Ramadan, everyone.
Yes, happy Ramadan as well to everyone. Thank you, Prof. Hassan, Prof. Rose, if you're still here.
Ada grup foto ke Laili?
Kita dah ambil along the way tadi, Prof.
Sorry about the phone number from the prof. He said he was going to drop his phone number.
Come again? You didn't see the phone number just now?
Yeah, don't worry, we will email the slide. The last slide is the phone number of the prof.
Yes, phone number and also the email address.
Okay, man.
Prof Hassan, nanti kita orang share dengan Prof ya gambar tadi.
Ada, saya
Okay,
sudah share dalam kita WhatsApp group.
Right, thank you everyone.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum. Waalaikumsalam.